process of actually loading the two astronauts there into the capsule. At the end of which, like we said, we're going to simulate the hatch closing with the two cameras inside. Ariane, do you want to tell us about the two folks that are actually going in here in this capsule today?
Sure. So in the foreground, you just saw our,
何をしてるかって言いながら
photographer Joel Evie,
何してんだろうこの人
who is preceding them. Got to catch some sweet photos, of course, of
今
our
ね
astronauts.
ロケットに宇宙飛行士さんを乗せるリハーサル中なんですけど、これ何してらっしゃるんだろうね。ちょっと自己紹介からまず行きましょうか。
Susan Knapp, Gary Lai, Audrey
ぴょん
Powers,
ぴょんぴょんしてるかわいい。何してんの？そこタッチする意味あんの？
and Kevin Sprogg, our crew member 7.
いきなりなんだけど、はい、ロケット実況 Vtuber の宇推くりあです。皆さんこんばんは。来てくれてありがとう。今日はブルーオリジンという会社のニューシェパードというロケットの打ち上げ実験を見ていこうと思います。今現在
As you mentioned, only
ここのね、上のカプセルに宇宙飛行士さんを乗せるリハーサルをやってます。乗るつもり、乗んないけど乗る。
payload lockers that will be taking postcards from Club for the Future up. But we are soon to see Gary Lai. You heard from Gary a little bit earlier in our broadcast. He's been here over 17 years, and we call him the architect of New Shepard. So it's quite moving for all of us here at Team Blue to watch him ascend the tower and get inside the capsule that he designed. Audrey, who just saw step into the capsule there, she is one of the leaders of our legal team and is a big part of all of the operations that we conduct here at Blue. But you know, in particular, Patrick, obviously we talk a lot about the engineering that goes into the design and the manufacturing, etc.
マネキンさん、うまくいくといいね。ごめんね、枠変えちゃって失礼しました。ありがとう。ひろみちゃん、こんばんは。大丈夫？体調大丈夫ですか？大丈夫かな？ゆっくり寝ても大丈夫だからね。
So to add to
キタ
her,
さん、
you know,
体験あり
rockstar
がとうござい
resume,
ます。来て
she's
くれて
also
嬉
a
しい
pilot,
です。
no
あ
big
りがと
deal,
う。
and the first female chair of the Commercial Space Flight
みんな
Federation.
乗ってる
So
乗ってる
really, really neat. She's had
乗って
some
る。
incredible
フランシ
impact
ス
on
コ・ワ
space
ミンさん、こん
legislation
ばんは。は
and
い、こんば
policy
ん
in
は。
some major ways, you know, for the whole
あみちゃん、
entire
こんばんしょ。ありが
commercial
とう。やす
space
やちゃん、こんばんし
industry.
ょ。こんばんし
I do
ょ。
want
来てくれてあり
to do
が
a
と
special little
う。
shout out to
お
her
まちゃん、
niece
こんばんしょ。こん
Genesee.
ばんしょ。
Genesee is a big fan of Blue
ありがとう。
Origin and one of our Club for the
自
Future
分の
members. So
イヤホンから
hey
漏れて
Genesee,
るから
good
ちょっと
morning.
これを
And another shout out to Gary's
そして
kids, Anna and Alec. They are
ピロリンって言った。
all potential future astronauts with us.
こんばんしょ。はてなさんもこんばんしょ。来てくれてありがとうございます。
Footsteps
今日
behind
は
their
ニュー
their
シェ
older
パー
family
ド。
members.
ニューシェパードというロケットを見ていきます。この子めっちゃ見応えあるから超楽しみにしてて。もう今までのリアのロケットの中でも再生回数ナンバーワンを記録したロケットなんで、ぜひとも見逃さずに。でも眠い方とかね、明日準備があるよって方はもう寝てくださいね。ちゃんと自分の体大事に。なんかロケットって割とね、日本の時間じゃない時間に上がっちゃうことが多いから、しんどいと思ったら無理せず休んでくださいね。今ね、宇宙飛行士さんを乗せる準備中って感じです。そもそもブルーオリジンのこのニューシェパードとは何ぞやっていう話からした方が良かったかな。じゃあブルーオリジンのホームページとか行ってみたらいいかな。ブルーオリジン簡単に言うとってやつがあるか。これちょっとじゃあ出そうかな。失礼しますよ。これかな。これを音来なくなったね。なんでだろう。
Thank you again, everybody, for joining us today. We're at T-minus 29 minutes to go until launch. A very exciting day for us
あと29
here
分
at
って言っ
Blue
てます
Origin.
ね
This is New Shepard's 15th flight to space,
おいしょ
and our first
おいしょ
astronaut
ちょっと
experience
待ってね
dress
これを出して
rehearsal
みようかな
combined with a launch. We should note again, no astronauts will be going to space today, but this is really a critical step in our march towards first human flight. Now, our stand-in astronaut, stand-in astronauts, Blue Origin employees Gary Powers and Gary Lai and Audrey Powers are in the capsule,
はい
and it looks like the simulated hatch closing is about to get underway.
ハッチクロージングって言いましたね。ハッチが閉じられましたって感じ。
Good. And Ariane, I think right now what they're doing is the actual communications check. So they're talking with mission control and the other astronauts and the safety
ブルーオリジンという会社が作ってますニューシェパードというロケットちゃんです。今回のロケットはちゃんと宇宙には行くんですけど、衛星を乗せるタイプのロケットではありません。人間を乗せて宇宙の旅行という宇宙空間をふよふよする用のやつ。人間を乗せるようです。衛星を軌道投入するようではありません。いいな、リアも乗りたいこれ。楽しそう。RSS ファーストステップって書いてる。でね、今日のこれロケットなんだけど左上に出しました、ニューシェパードリフトオフって書いてますね。リフトオフ打ち上げが行われた後、上とカプセル部分とロケット部分が分離します。で分離した後、下の部分は垂直に着陸します。じゃんって帰ってきます。で上のカプセル部分はそのままストーンって飛んでいってパラシュートを開いてカプセルランディングちゃんと着地するところまで今日はね全部見られますよ多分。っていう感じなのでちょっとすごい見応えがある気がするのでぜひとも楽しみにしててくださいね。どの辺置いとこうかな。端っこ置いときたかったんだけどなんかあれだよね。いいやちっちゃくしちゃえこれでいいや。めっちゃ綺麗かっこいい。空撮かなこれ。ちょっとじゃあこれをオフに間違った。こっちをオフにしてちょっとねやっぱね変えよう。さっきの画面を一旦これ切るね。一旦これちっちゃくするね。一旦ちっちゃくさせてください。一旦ちっちゃくさせてください。失礼。ちょっと待ってね。もう一画面出そうと思うの。もう一画面出すにはねなんかね別の画面映っちゃうからね一旦消させてもらうよ。はい。でこれでこんな感じかな。はい失礼しました。リアリーが左に行けばいい？リアが左に行ってコメ欄の下にやっていくとか。ここリア後ろだった。ちょっと待ってはいこれこうリア左いいかもね。なるほど。クリアもじゃあ持ってこよう。クリアもクリアも後ろでした。ちょっとはいクリアひどい。頭に乗せてとこクリア。はいクリア。ダサいかな。ダサいね。名札なんだけどな。ちょっとリアの名前
While we have a moment here, let's talk about the flight profile of the rocket. Once we finish the crew experience rehearsal, we will extract the stand-in astronauts. They will get back in their car and they will drive back to mission control for New Shepard to enjoy the rest of her day, which includes a flight to space. The rocket will lift off the propulsion module, propelling the capsule up towards space at 75 kilometers, or about 250,000 feet. The two vehicles will separate and continue their ascent to their respective once it's hit its apogee, which is over the Kármán line, over the internationally recognized line of space of 100 kilometers, it will come back down and land on our landing pad just 2 miles north of the launch pad.
そう気づいた方いらっしゃいますか。リア
In
の
parallel,
リ
will
アの
continue
配信
its
の解像
flight
度
up
気づいた方いらっしゃいます
its
か。
own
まさか
apogee, which we're aiming for
まだ
about
気づいてないなんてことはないかな。
105 kilometers. If we had astronauts on board, they would get their 3 minutes of weightlessness, gazing out of the beautiful
なんか
windows.
今回の配
As
信
we
か
said,
ら
6
なんか
seats,
綺麗になっ
6
てますよ
windows,
実は
over a third of the capsule
なん
is
かね
windows. So
なんか
when
ね
you know,
実はね
Patrick, when we get the opportunity to fly up there, it's going to feel like we are floating in space with all that window.
It's gonna be incredible.
It's going to be incredible, absolutely. And after the 3 minutes, buckle back in, and the capsule descends, comes down under 3 big parachutes, and just in the last moments, we have the retro thrust system that fires and creates basically an air cushion for a nice soft landing back into our valley here, back in the desert. So we're at T-minus 24 minutes and 51 seconds to go to launch. We were in a brief hold. I understand we'll be
ちょっと
emerging
ホール
from
ド
the
してお
hold
ります
here
ってほんの
shortly
少しだけホールドしてます
while the team is continuing to do its various checks, communications checks. They have to check all the systems that are in there. Again, this is the first time that we've had stand-in astronauts, people on top of this fully fueled rocket. And again, we will not be flying them to space, but we're doing just about everything but today. We did see Joel Eby, our photographer, go into the capsule.
みんなちゃんと英語聞き取れたら書き込むんだよリアだけじゃ無理かもしれないからね英語聞き取り大会です今日は
Yeah, we did the hatch
ここまで見せてくれるのすごいあ
ヘリ
飛んでるヘリ飛んでるヘリコ飛んでるヘリコ
And this pre-planned hold is part of the rehearsal operations designed to make sure we can get our astronauts out of the
アスト
capsule.
ノー
Again,
リハーサルオ
called
ペレーション
egress,
って言ってますね
and
ア
then
スト
headed
ロ
back
ノ
to
ー
the
ツ
safety shelter, and
宇
then
宙飛行士
eventually
さんを乗
back
せる
into
オ
their
ペレーションの
parts
リ
and
ハーサ
control.
ル中でございますって
Of
言って
course,
ま
we're
す
doing
ね
this this time
乗って
because
た
we're
は
taking
ず
the
の
astronauts
宇宙飛
out
行士さんた
on
ち
launch
乗り
day.
終わっ
This
て
hold would not
リ
happen
ハーサル
because
なの
of
で
course
降
our
りてもらい
astronauts
ま
are
す
going to
と
space, right?
That is right. So we just saw Gary and Audrey leave the
何人乗ってた
capsule
7人
there.
そんなに乗ってた
Our
何人乗ってた
crew on the tower is just going to do some last checks before they close the hatch for real.
Make sure nobody's stowing
Yeah,
away.
exactly. Make sure there are no stowaways.
あー
There's
乗れな
Audrey
かっ
and
たね
Gary.
That's
And our
Joel.
帰りはタッチしないんだあなんかグーしてるさっきねこのね上にタッチしてたんですよここにおかえりなさい黄色いボンベは何のボンベ
Re-entering the safety shelter there,
メンテナンスバルブスって書いて
where
る
they met up with the other 2 stand-in
Emergency
astronauts,
air
Maury and
supply
Susan
だ
Knapp.
からなんか空気かな空気緊急用の
Obviously
空
having a
気
good
サ
time.
プライ空気供給ですね
Getting so close to flying people here at Blue Origin. Again, this is a very, very important step on our march to first human flight. You can almost taste it, Patrick.
前回の打ち上げは1月14日に行われていましただからちょうど3ヶ月前です
Sounds
ね
like they're recapping their
NS14
great
が飛んだのは
experience there and what they got to do in the
あの
capsule
時
and
は
all those tests.
このリハーサルは多分なかったと思う
Man,
んだ
must
け
have
ど
been so exciting.
あったの
And
かな
again,
なかっ
can
た
you
よね多
imagine
分
Gary Lai, the gentleman in the bottom right corner of your screen? He's been at Blue Origin since the very beginning. He knows this system inside and out, and that's why it's really touching for him to participate in this activity, right? He's been really committed through this entire program to getting this vehicle up, flying, landing,
Yep.
And soon taking people to space and back.
せっかくだからブルーオリジンのあれ航空写真で今上から見てみようかなと思うこれをね出したいなどうやって出すんだろうこれえいパネルを折りたたむシュッできたかなウエストテキサスにありますここだなお名前呼んでない方いらっしゃいますかはてなちゃんまで読んだかなこんばんみたまちゃん来てくれてありがとうまいちゃん来てくれてありがとうこの間マインクラフトじゃないごめん間違ったマインスイーパーの時に来てくれたありがとうまいちゃん打ち上げと聞いて打ち上げそうです今からめちゃくちゃ見応えのある打ち上げが行われます こんばんは。友人ロケット打ち上げるのか？あ、クラウドちゃん来てくれてありがとう。ブルーオリジンっていうところのね、打ち上げです。成功率は？成功率か。これ、そんな失敗してない？失敗してる？これまだね、打ち上げの、なんだろう、実験というか、そういう感じなので、まあまあ、本番じゃないというかね、失敗する確率も全然あります。でも、この会社は強いから大丈夫。絶対今日も普通に降りてくると思うけどな。マネキンスカイウォーカーはどこかしら？マネキンスカイウォーカーという名前のマネキンがね、スター・ウォーズ好きの方ならビビッとくるかも。マネキンスカイウォーカーが乗ってるんですよ。マネキンスカイウォーカーが3回言った。この中に人乗ってるの？あ、そうだね、さっきの時は乗ってましたね。HD ガスさん、1080p 配信になってる。そうなんです。気づいてくれてありがとうございます。リアのトラッキング性能も上がってる？上がってる？ね、ぬるぬるする？前よりマシかな？どうだろう？どう思う？なんとですね、この配信が、薄いクリアの新しいパソコンのデビュー配信になります。わーい。なので、今日から 1080p 配信です。本当今日からずっとかわかんないけど、とりあえず今日は 1080p でちゃんと動くかどうかのテストも兼ねておりますので、もしね止まっちゃったりとかしたらごめんね。部屋がね全部崩れててね、新しいパソコンにした時に頑張って直したんだよね。これでもアナキンのマネキン、そうそう、マネキンスカイウォーカーちゃんです。アナキンスカイウォーカーじゃないです。
Absolutely, everything seems to be going nominally. You do see our crew member 7 on the left, as well as our crew tower.
あ、手順書見えちゃうよ、手順書。いいの？見えていいの？見たい。
They are again closing the hatch.
成功率 100%。ブースター開始は14分の13。ありがとうございます。ありがとう、ひらめちゃん。1回だけダメだったのかな。ツーツー PC デビュー配信おめでです。ありがとうです。めでたい新 PC。そう、めでたい新 PC になりました。みんなが助けてくれたから、リアはあれとあれ SSD となんだっけ、あれなんて言うんだっけ、 SSD と HDD じゃない SSD と OS と買った。 Windows 10買った。 Windows 10入れた。さすがにリラックスにする気はなかった。ブルーオリジンさんのさ、羽のマークめっちゃかっこよくないですか？羽マークよき。ブースター回収に失敗したのは初回だけだね。ありがとう、教えてくれて。なんかずっと成功してるから大丈夫なあれなのかと思ってた。最初だけ失敗してたんだね。あんま知らなかった。ずっとなんか普通の顔してるから。ツーツー PC ブースター回収打ち上げ成功率。今日絶対面白いと思うんだよ。だってこう打ち上げって回収するとこまで見られるんだよ。しくったリア。ちょっと今日低速配信にするの忘れてた。低遅延じゃなくて普通の遅延になってるけどごめんね。しくっちゃった。あと22分で打ち上げが行われます。ちょっとさ、打ち上げがある砂漠見に行ってみん？ちょっと砂漠見に行きたいリア。砂漠が見たいぞ。見たくない？ここに砂漠を用意しました。
Again, thank you everybody for joining us live for New Shepard's 15 flight to space. We have so far had a successful astronaut experience rehearsal. We just saw the tower crew closing the hatch for real. We had earlier our astronauts in there, stand-in astronauts, did some tests, and now we are continuing our countdown to the launch itself.
カウントダウンローンチ打ち上げに対するカウントダウンがずっと続いておりましてということを言ってて、宇宙飛行士を登場させてハッチを閉じましたというふうに言ってらっしゃいますけど、よく考えたら20分前で間に合うんですか？飛行機よりも早く飛行機並み
But why don't we take a little closer look at their roles and specifically meet Kevin and Sarah. Let's check it out.
そんな直前になんか始まったのでチェッキーアウトってやったらチェッキーアウトしましょう。チェッキーラ。
We want to democratize space. You don't need to be a NASA astronaut. You don't need to be a trained engineer. We want artists and poets and teachers and scientists to be able to go to space.
Shepard has cleared the tower. Crew member 7 is a position unique to Blue. 2 assigned to each launch. There are 6 people that can fly in our crew capsule. The 7th person is the crew member 7.
This is for real.
The other crew member 7 is called Capsule Communicator, and they represent all of mission control and launch
ミッ
operations.
ションコントロールセンターもかっこいいですね。
It took me a long road to get here. I spent over 20 years as a fighter pilot at the United States Navy. But since I've been 8 years old, I wanted to be in space. Coming here to Blue Origin is the realization of a childhood dream of mine.
My background is in physics and astronomy. I went into STEM education. I was a teacher for many years. And when the position opened up at Blue, I knew that was me. The fact that I'm crew member 7 and the visible point of our entire team, it's such an honor.
You're expected to start hearing the noise. Crew member 7 is part teacher, part trainer, and part guide.
They're
Teacher
embedded
and
with the
trainer?
astronauts. They're truly a member of the crew.
They're going to live with you at the astronaut village. They're going to conduct all of your astronaut training.
Spaceflight is complicated, but our astronauts that fly with us will not need to have a complicated view of what's happening. The rocket is autonomous, and all of the safety systems are hardwired into the core.
On launch day, crew member 7 is actually going to walk you up the tower, put you in your seat in the capsule, close the hatch.
The Capcom will then take over as the astronauts take their journey to space. And then as soon as they land, crew member 7 will be there to help open the hatch and whisk them away to the celebrations.
これ
Our
クルーメンバー
astronauts
7 っ
are
てい
one
う
part of a
メン
very
バーなのかな？
historic journey.
We're trying to build the infrastructure to get millions of people living and working in space.
So the people who come here will truly be helping us take that first step.
Clearly, Patrick, these astronauts are in very capable hands with Kevin and Sarah. Not just capable, but they are experienced and extraordinarily passionate about space and everything that we do at Blue Origin.
Absolutely.
Now, this is, I don't know about you, but this is quite
Capable
surreal
って言った？
to
ねえ
watch.
ねえ、
Again, we are
capable っ
getting
て
very
言った？
close to sending
こ
people
の
up
人
to
たちは
space
超
and
有
back.
能って言ってます
I
ね、
hope
多
that there
分
are。students around the world that get to see events like
超
this
有能
and
です。
are inspired to pursue careers in space. Patrick, I know you and I was more shuttle
クルーメンバー7っていうの
era
は今
watching
ね、
the shuttle
宇宙
go
飛行士
up,
さん
and
の
I
代わり
hope
に
that
乗って
we're a key part of
乗って
inspiring the
降
next
りた方
generation.
々。
And everybody at Blue is. So much so that we founded Club for the Future. This is our nonprofit that has been hard at work since 2019.
ガイドさんみたいな感じ
And
で言って
as
ま
you
した
know,
ね。な
we
んか
launch postcards from around the globe in New
Mercury
Shepard,
的な
including today.
彼人
And
が
it's all
乗
about
るんですか？
inspiring
ゆ
youth
くゆ
and
くは乗り
opening
ま
up
す。今
access
日は乗
to
りま
space
せん
for
が、
everybody.
ゆくゆくは
Now, the
人が乗
club
り
has
ます。
worked with some of the
上
most
のこのカプ
recognized
セルの
names
中身
in
とか
STEM
すごいふか
education,
ふかでい
including
い感じだよ
Microsoft
ね。
Education and the Challenger Center. So why don't we take a closer look at these partnerships and all things Club for the Future?
At Club for the Future, we get to inspire youth to really give them that
い
connection
ろい
and
ろイ
love
ベント
for
やってる
space.
んだね。いいな。
Club for the Future has a superpower where we get to literally tap into rocket scientists, aerospace architects, and people who are not only just dreaming the future, but they're out there building it. So our very first mission is send a postcard to space. All 7 continents and well over 100 countries have participated. And so that little moment where they realize this postcard has taken that journey that they're going to have the opportunity to take also one day, it clicks and they're hooked. Club's been fortunate over this past year to have some really amazing partnerships. One is
パー
Project
トナーシ
Yanos.
ップズって言ってる
Students need to have their curiosity sparked so they can fall in love with human spaceflight and why it's not in the future. It's today. Let's look at the past, the present, and the future of. So for the past, it's the Apollo 11. For the present, we're looking at Artemis. And then for the future, the vision that Blue has set for human spaceflight. And that's why Club for the Future and Project Yanos has real potential to have a positive impact on the world.
Another one is Microsoft Education Day of Data.
We are preparing these students for these future careers, fundamental skills like creative thinking, problem solving, computational thinking, and data literacy. It's been a fantastic partnership. Who doesn't want to be part of the rocket launch?
Club for the Future partnered with STEM to
パートナーなんか
Hub.
いろい
Together,
ろ
we challenged the entire state of Florida to dream big.
パートナーシップを組んでる
It
方
was
々が
like
いるっぽい
giving
ですね
them the gift of the
あ
future.
そうだそうだなんかさ今日もさ
Club for the
載って
Future
る
is
みたい
proud
なん
to
か
be
前は
supporting
載って
Challenger
たんだけ
Center.
ど
They've
なんか
not
ね
only
カードが載っ
implementing
て
the
るら
postcard
しいよ
space program, but Club for the Future most recently has been helping build a virtual mission called Destination Moon, where they put kids right in the seat of mission control, taking the New Glenn to the moon.
The teachers have told us that they're loving it, the students are
It's
loving it.
on you,
They're going to be
Glenn.
the ones exploring Mars and Moon. They're going to be the ones launching New Glenn.
Thanks for being members of the Club for the Future.
I can just think of one word: hope. I see this entire generation that's going to be part of something far, far bigger than I am.
Great. No, it was so cool to
Yeah,
see all that
Glenn-さんはね、
awesome
この
work that the club is doing.
ヨ
Very
セパラさんとは違
inspiring.
うんですけど
And then what we just see
別
on
の
our
ロケ
screen
ットです
are
ね
stand-in astronauts have descended the tower, gotten in the vehicle, and they're heading back to mission control. That's where they're going to be watching the
こいつ
actual
も
launch
月
and
を目
landing
指して
from, and then they're going to go out to the landing site after that to continue the essentially the back end part of the astronaut rehearsal.
Right.
So as we've been talking about, Club for the Future and all things about the club, I do want to highlight that there's a club member that we know and love that has been a great part of helping their local community, especially as part of that recent unfortunate
Right.
Texas winter storm. We caught up with him to hear about how he's been helping his community as well. To talk a little bit about what it's like being an ambassador for
砂
Club
漠
for
を
the
遠征
Future.
見せる機
So
会が
let's go
や
hear
っ
it
てき
from
た気
Beckett
がする
Potter's
見
own
える
words.
砂漠
Check it out.
砂漠あチェケラーまた始まった砂漠ここですよ砂漠砂漠ここちょっとここにあるのあブローリジンについて語ってくれてるのごめんちょっと砂漠みたいんだよありがとうどうしよう可愛いから負けました砂漠ごめんなさいTell us about your environment with Club 可愛すぎる
You're really making space so accessible to kids. And I drew a new Shepard on my postcard here. Yes, so we're working with the Lukumi Foundation, and they're all about making a difference for their own lives and help others using good deeds. And we invite any kids to join worldwide. So my idea with Blue Origin and Lukumi is to collaborate with Club for the Future to make the postcards descend into space. And we are going to put positive and
ブルームーンって言ってく
inspirational
れた
messages
よ
on the
ねひらめちゃんが
cards. And instead
Blue
of having them
Moon.
return back to yourself, we're going to send them to someone
月
else.
着陸船ブルー
It'll
ム
be
ーン
great. In fact, even out of this world.
いろいろ開発してるんです
No, although I'd just like to say, if you ever need a junior correspondent for New Shepard, I'm your kid. Go Team Blue. Marauding Ferocious.
かっこいい Go チームブルーって言ってるよ Go チームブルーってかわよかわ
Oh
よ
my God, what an adorable and inspiring kid.
Beckett, you should just take my seat. Although I'm sure the Ellen show has already called him. We've lost our moment. All right. Well, so as we're talking about Club for the Future, I do want to talk about another initiative from the club, which involves our buddy Mannequin Skywalker, who's on board today. You want to talk to us a little bit about that, Patrick?
Absolutely, I love talking about Mannequin in the next adventure. So Blue Origin is going to be donating Mannequin Skywalker to the U.S. Space and Rocket Center, which is home, of course, to one of our key partners,
アメリカ合衆国の中でも
So
こ
we're
こ
also
で
going to
す
be donating
な
one
ん
of
か
the
いつも
new
この
Shepard
辺の左
seats, and
右
so
か
with
右じゃないな
Mannequin
東
and the seat, I think we
だ
can
からね
tell a
あれなんですけど
great
こ
story about sort of that path to flight and really tell students how, you know, Mannequin essentially helped the New Shepard program in human space flight. So I think that could be a great way to, you know, actually see it there.
Absolutely agree.
でここから飛ばして宇宙に行って帰ってきてこっちのここに着陸するの。なんかこの焦げてるとこがねいつも着陸してる場所なんですよ。
So there we see Mannequin, you know, actually in New Shepard capsule.
マネキンスカイウォーカーが見えてる。マネキンスカイウォーカー。みんなが見たいマネキンスカイウォーカー。
Patrick, that's what he's doing.
You and I would not be Zen up
No.
there. But these mannequins mimic the weight, form, and center of gravity and the range of motion of the human body. So it allows us to actually test the weight and CG and balance in the capsule, just like we would be if we were flying real people. And so that mannequin that's going to be flying today is actually the same one that flew in the last mission with those space camp astronaut wings pinned to the flight suits. It's going to be really cool to see all of that kind of make its way back home.
Very cool indeed. I can't wait to see Mannequin at the Space and Rocket Center in Alabama soon. Again, as you've mentioned, they've been wonderful partners with our Club for the Future. Okay, we're at T-minus 10 minutes and 45 seconds to go until New Shepard's 15th launch to space. Although I do notice here that we have gone into a brief hold. So why don't we check out New Shepard on the pad as she gets ready for her
もうし
flight.
ばらくお待ちください。よきスカイウォーカーやる気ないこれベローンってしてるね。でもなんかあの角度なんだね。寝るときね、打ち上げるとき。マーキュリー7的なクルー7？クルーメンバー7。ワクワク盛りがたい。指導さんでお名前合ってる？来てくれてありがとう。ワクワクしてきた。小型のロケットだから大気の範囲そんなに広くないのかな。小型と言ってもな感じはするけど、この丸の範囲より外だと燃えないのかな。やっぱり燃えるようなことはないんだね。この間燃えてたロケット実験場あったけど、ここは燃えないのでね、大丈夫なんだね。はい、待ちます。気まついた。ありがとう。もうちょっとだけ待ってってね。いや、乗りたいたまちゃん、いや、乗りたいよ。これは乗りたいよ。でもリアたちの代わりにとりあえずマネキンスカイウォーカーがね乗ってくれてますから、きっと飛んでるうちにいろいろ分かると思います。あ、なんかさ、KSP やったことある人いますか？カーバルスペースプログラム。
45 seconds to go until launch. Another countdown to another what should be exciting launch. We are in a hold at the moment, but while we've got a little bit of time left, we did want to bring you up to speed on some progress with our new Glenn vehicle development down in Florida. New Glenn, of course, is our orbital rocket, the successor to New Shepard discovery. We're investing in building a state-of-the-art facility down in the Cape. It is beautiful. You're just down there last week, right? And we're testing flight operations with a giant Stage 1 simulator, producing flight hardware and growing the integration and test facilities.
眠くて溶けそうだから溶けることにしました。リアちゃんごめん。いいんやで。寝ていいんやで。自分の体大事にしてね。おやすみなさい。
Hi everyone, I'm Caitlin Dietrich reporting here from Florida Space Coast in front of New Glenn's rocket factory and growing campus. Let's go.
ニューグレーンのロケットファクトリーって言った？ニューグレーン作ってるとこ見れるの？
The campus here in Florida is about 1 million square feet. We currently have over 550 people on site, and we've been growing significantly. We've just entered the high bay, the centerpiece of the factory. Raw stock aluminum comes in one end of the factory to our south, and a rocket moves out to the north.
Take a look at this thing. It's so cool to see New Glenn's first stage like this, just mocked up.
With 180 feet, we're going to be turning something that's close to a football field in length, and it's also 23 foot in diameter, which is larger than anything flying today.
You just showed us outside some of the flight-like parts of the first stage. And this is where we're fabricating them right next door, right?
That's right. This is one of our busiest shops right now. And the team can work on both flights. And another part of the team can be behind on the back face. Then they'll go out, be assembled to form that forward and aft module of the New Glenn first stage. You know, these mills that we make these parts on, we're doing things on a scale that has not been done before.
めっちゃ意識高そうな会社。ロケットの会社割とこんな感じかな。
I mean, we're building domes, we're building barrels, and now we're ready to move into the flight hardware production stage.
工場すごいな。
So
ドー
imagine
ムだド
we're
ーム。
at the top of the stage 2 tank.
ト
Below
ップ
us
オブステー
is
ジ
a
2タ
full
ンク。
first stage,
2段目のタン
second
クの
stage, New Glenn rocket,
頭の
over
部分。
200 feet.
こんな大きいんだね。
And we're
ニ
now
ュープレ
entering
ン
our
ロケット。
composites hub. This is where our
BE4
payload
み
fairing,
た
one
い。
of our
え、
other big
BE4 じゃ
elements
ない
New Glenn is made. This 7-meter
New
payload
Glenn
fairing
のロ
offers
ケット。
twice the volume of anything flying today. So when you're a payload customer, when you see this, you think, I can put a huge satellite in there, or I can put a whole bunch of small to
大
medium
きいサテライ
satellites
ト、
in there
大きい衛
and
星で
really
も
take advantage
入るように。
of the capability
これ
that
は
New
すごい大
Glenn
きいフェアリングで
brings
す
to the
ね。
mix.
この中に衛星入れんの？でかすぎないかい？すごいね。車とかじゃ済まないのになんか家入りそう。
Very exciting. The
いいフェアリングでしたね。これはちょっとペロペロしたくなる。なんでもないです。ゴロゴロしたくなりますね、フェアリングの中で。
down there in Florida, just to see this entire campus that we have built. Again, we are the first organization that is going to be building the rocket and flying it out of Florida. So that should be coming up in a couple of years here. That's going to be very exciting. Now, as part of that orbital launch site and general facility campus that we're building
今回
there,
打ち上
we have
げ
something
られる
called
ロ
the
ケットちゃんの
TCAP,
方
or
は
the Tank Cleaning and
メタンじゃ
Testing
ないよ、間違
Facility.
った。待って、
We
水
use
素
this
と
facility to pressure
液体
test
酸素
and
なん
clean
で
New
すけ
Glenn
ど、
stages before
ニューグレン
flight.
ちゃんの1段
And
目
this
は多
massive
分メ
building
タ
that we're
ンだっ
about
た
to
かな。
show
メタン
you
と
is
酸素だ
being
った
used
かな
for
と
the fully
思い
reusable
ます。
first stage, which stands 180 feet tall. To give you some context, that's about 3 times the size of New Shepard just in the
New
first stage.
Shepard
So
の
why don't we take a
3
look
倍
at
の
this facility?
サイズあるって言いましたね、今。
We're standing in front of the tank cleaning and testing facility for New
ニューグレン
Glenn
ちゃん
on
か、
the
ごめん。
rocket factory campus. About 230 feet tall. We're going to head into the building and get to know this facility and all the capabilities it gives us.
200?
So this door right here opens, and essentially the first stage of New Glenn will come in, and this large crane above our head will
大
lift
き
the
いクレ
vehicle
ーンあり
up
ますよ。あ、天井クレーンですよ。ほらほら。燃えるね、
This is
た
where
ま
the
ちゃん。
rocket will be when we do the pressure testing. Once the
プレッ
rocket
シャー
is
テスティング、
vertical on
圧
this
力テス
fixture,
ト。
we use tie downs right here to secure the vehicle.
え
So you can see here we're only on the 3rd floor, and I feel like I've been in this elevator
エ
for
レ
about
ベーター
10
だ。
years.
かっこよ。
So we just got into the TCAP at about the same
で、
level
上に行っ
as the top of New Glenn's first stage.
この辺がファーストステージ
And
の
I
トッ
just
プ
took
が
a
来
quick
ます。
peek over this railing, and I gotta tell you, this is
高っ。
going to be a massive rocket.
1段目のトップって頭がここなんでしょ？もっともっと上がって。
I feel like I'm standing on New Glenn's first stage. Woohoo! And one thing that's so evident when you're looking down on almost this New Glenn city and our launch site in the port, we really have something
ニューグレン
unique
建てたら
here.
こん
There's
な
no
感じ
other
ってことで
facility
しょ
on
うか
the
ね。
Cape where you build the rocket, you fly it, you bring it back, and you fly it
ビ
again.
ルトとはロケットっていうか、ここで組み立てしますって VAB ってことですかね。垂直組み立てするんだね。
Super
そうみたい
exciting.
だね。1
Super
段目のトッ
exciting.
プはこの
And,
辺ですってさっき
you know,
おっ
we
しゃっ
talked
て
about
ま
a
したの
lot
で。
on previous webcasts, but I think it's worth bringing up again. There's been so much value already out of this New Shepard program. Well, we haven't flown people yet, although as today is a testament to, we are very close to flying people to space. But taking the lessons from the design of New Shepard, the operations of New Shepard, the human spaceflight operations of New Shepard, as well as the refurbishment of the vehicles themselves,
ニューグレン。
and rolling them into New Glenn has been, you know, it's almost like it catapults you to, you know, it's a trampoline to the next level, which
1080p だ
is
から
why
い
we've
つもより
always
も大
started
き
New
く見れる
Glenn.
はずということで、
Absolutely.
これでいいかな。
Essentially, all of the learnings that we've had
New
from this
Glenn
great vehicle have
の
already been applied. You see it sort of in the design,
こんな
everything
感じ
from
かな。
how we lay out the stages, the tank designs, everything from how we manufacture the tanks with friction stir welding. You know, all of these things we've learned on New Shepard, and now we're applying on New Glenn. But you know, to your point, it's at a
この
3
接
to
続部すごいね。
5x scale, right? Which is kind of has its own.
これフレキ
Do
ホ
you
ース
want
で
to
す
talk
ね。
a
フ
little
レ
bit
キシ
about
ブルホー
the
ス。
parallels
何入れ
between
てこれ
the first stage of New
液体
Glenn
酸素入れ
and
て
the
んのか
booster
な。
on New Shepard?
Yeah, no, it's a great analogy there. So you actually see a lot of the similar design there, which is really
ここで
interesting.
多分ね、
So we
切れるんですよ。
have, you know, the same, essentially the same aerodynamic surfaces right? So with the strakes and the fins, we have them on
アン
New
ビリカ
Shepard
ル
on
ケーブ
the
ルとか
propulsion
言いますね。ア
module.
ンビリカルって。
Same thing
その
on
って意味なんですけど、
on the
こう
GS1
つながってる
on
と
the
ころ
first
から
stage
プチ
of
ッ
New
と切れると
Glenn.
ころアンビ
They
リ
just
カルっ
happen
て
to
呼んだ
be
りし
much
ます。
larger.
ニ
And
ュー
you
グ
and
レ
I
ン
can
のフライト
probably
はねこんな感
carry
じ。
the fin of a
飛
New
んで
Shepard, whereas the one on the first stage of New
パカ
Glenn
ッ
is
と割れ
actually
て
the
1
size
段目はやっぱり
of
垂
the
直
wing
回
of
収
an
で
F-16.
その
And
後
to
2
be
段目
clear,
は
you know,
ポイ
we
して
call it a fin.
衛
We
星
call
は
it actually
シュッ
internally
と
we
上
call it
に
a strake.
行
It
く感じ
effectively
ですと。
acts like a wing,
Yeah.
right?
ごめ
Because
ん、ミ
at
ニカンちゃんそうだっ
180
た。
feet
説明
long,
するのを
that
ね
is, it's effectively,
説
it's
明
kind
し
of
ま
like
しょ
an
う。ちょっと待って
airplane,
ね。
right? And we want to
今
give
日
it, we
の
want to have
今日の
lift on the
ロケ
vehicle
ッ
to
トは
be
です
able to
ね、
fly it
人を
back
乗せて飛ばすタイプのロケットで
get
す。
it
衛
back
星を乗
onto
せ
our
て飛ばす
landing
タイプのロ
ship
ケット
that
じゃな
will
く
be
て、
underway
ゆ
when
く
it
ゆ
comes
くは
into
人を乗せ
flight.
て
Absolutely.
旅
So
行と
those
かね、そういうふう
the
に
fins and
使うよう
strakes
なロケッ
allow
ト
us to
の開
get
発
a lot of
が
stability,
行
both
わ
essentially
れていまして、
directionally,
今回は
rotationally,
15 回
and
目
it
の
gives
フ
us
ラ
a
イト
lot
テ
of
スト
the
なんですよ。
ability to
で、
go downrange
まだ
to land. So a New Shepard allows us
人
to
は
kind
ね
of
乗
come
って
back
ないん
and
ですけ
precision
ど、
land on the pad.
ゆくゆくは人を乗せ
With
て
New Glenn,
商業
we're
打ち
going
上
to be
げを
landing
するという
downrange on a
タイプ
moving
の
ship. So by having all of these aerodynamic
ロケットちゃ
structures
んで
and
す。
having all
なの
of
で
that
後ろにある
design
のはカプセルです
heritage
ね。
on
人
how
が
to
乗れま
design
す。
them, how to use them in our flight control systems,
エ
it
ヴァのアン
allows
ビリ
us
カル
to
ケーブル
land
と
with
ケ
a
ーブ
lot
ル
of
と意
precision
味同じ。
downrange
そっ
without
か、エヴァ
having
履
to
修
use a
組は
lot
エ
of
ヴァで
propulsive
通じるアンビリ
maneuvers
カ
to
ル。い
essentially,
い
use
ね。
up all that
便
fuel
利
to
だ
kind
ね、エ
of
ヴァ
land.
エヴァン
So
ゲリオン。
lots of great learning from there.
めちゃく
You
ちゃ
know, a
綺
lot
麗
of
なんだ、
great
1
learning
段目
around how
の
we
景
actually
色。1
land.
段
I
目
mean,
1番
Gary
上の
sort
景
of
色。
spoke to it, right?
さ
Our
っき
ability to kind of
アナキン、なんていう
throttle
マネキンスカイ
down,
ウォーカーが
hover, and
見て
kind
た
of
景
land
色があ
and
り
kind
ま
of
したけ
bring
ど、
it
す
down
ごい綺麗だ
nice
った
and
よ。
gentle there is
絶対
you know,
眺めいい
extremely
よね。
important.
で
We
今
want to
日
be
の
able
打
to
ち上げ
land
のプロファイルなんで
precisely,
すけど、こんな
and
感
all
じです
that
ね。
throttle
飛ん
ability
で、
and guidance around landing
リ
all
フトオ
developed
フ
on
が
New
あっ
Shepard,
た
so we don't
後、
have to learn
カー
it
マンライン
again
ってこ
on
う
New Glenn on
左上に
something
書いて
much
ますけど、
bigger
カー
and
マンライン 100km っていう
much
の
more
が、
hefty.
ここから先が宇宙ですよっていうね、
I don't know if the
一応
rocket would like you
100
calling
キロ
it
から
hefty.
上が宇宙ですよってことにな
Okay,
ってる
well,
の
we're
で、
at
ここに
T-minus
カーマン
10
ライン
minutes
と書い
and
てます。
45
で、こ
seconds
の
to
カーマ
go
ンライ
until
ンの
New
直
Shepard's
前か
15th
な
launch
で
to
多分
space and
分
back.
離を
As
して、
we've mentioned
カ
before,
プセルだ
hopefully
け
you caught
自
it
由
as well.
落下というか、フ
We
リー
had
フ
a
ライト状態
successful
になります。
astronaut experience
で、
rehearsal
宇宙空間
test
ふわふわ
for
楽
the
しんだ
pre-flight
後、
operations.
カプセルは
Following the
こ
flight,
うね、
those
パ
same
ラシュート
stand-in
というかドロップシュート
astronauts
出
will
し
head
て
out to the capsule
着
once
陸。
it comes back down, so
で、
we can
1段目
practice
の方
some
は
of those post-flight operations as well.
垂直に
But in the
シュッ
meantime,
と
we are in a brief
帰っ
hold.
て
We
くる
just
と
want to
いう
make
感
sure
じ
that our
です。
teams are getting
で、こ
aligned.
の
And
一
we're
連の
all
流れ
set
が
for
全
New
部
Shepard's flight
こ
to
の
space.
配信
So
内
why
で
don't
見
we
られ
check
る
out New Shepard
そう
while
なの
she's
で
on the
15 分
pad
ぐ
getting
らいで
ready
全部ね
for
終わっちゃうので
her flight to space today.
すごい見応えがあると思います。これカプセルなの、さっきはね宇宙飛行士さんを乗せる訓練みたいな感じでリハーサルをしてらっしゃいました。今はマネキンが乗ってるだけかな。誰も人は乗ってないはずです。さすがにヒュンってなるって言って高くてヒュンってなったのかな。ファリング何でできてるんだろう。日本だとアルミだけどあんまり金属感なかったよなって言ってくれてね。なんだろうね。結構金属っぽいけど結構金属っぽいかなと思ったけど、でもこの辺かな、この辺かな。ちょっと見よっか。えいえい。これかな。
New Glenn has made. This
確かになんだろうこれ。なんだろうこれ。
small to medium satellites in there and really take
金属かな、でもやっぱり。スターシップみたいに垂直着陸するんだ。あ、そうそうそうこの子はね、1段目が垂直着陸します。さっき砂漠のターンもあったんで、砂漠のターンもう一回だけ言っとくか。砂漠のところで打ち上げがあります。こんな感じの砂漠で打ち上げをしてます。こんな感じのなんもないとこで、こんなとこです。こんなとこです。で、この中でもちょっとだけね、見たらここに線があるんですけど、打ち上げてるとこと着陸するとこをつなぐ線がね、道路が上から見るとありますね。面白いよね、これ上から見てると。こ こんなとこ地球にあるんだって。シュッ。全然違わない。ちょっとホールド待ってるとこだよ。ホールド中ですね今。ホールドまだかなまだかな。ちゃんと打ち上げ行われるといいですね。さっきから少しプシュプシュって音が聞こえるんだけど、なんだろうね。
Thank you everybody for joining us for New Shepard's 15 flight to space. We are T-minus 10 minutes and 45 seconds to go until launch here. Our team is just getting aligned on some last minute issues. But while we've got a little bit of time here, I wanted to bring you all up to speed on some recent progress that we've made on the BE4 engine. We were just talking about we called it hefty. Maybe it's big boned. Again, want it to work.
It's taken a lot of pillars to space. That rocket is doing a great job there.
Absolutely. It's a robust rocket. Now, we have been working on the BE4 engines that are going to propel that rocket. There are going to be 7 BE4 engines going forward. And we've been successfully hot firing those engines as part of a regimented test program, and we've seen some long-duration, full-power burns on a regular basis from that engine. To date, we've accumulated over 11,000 seconds of test time. In addition, recently we delivered the first Pathfinder engines to our customer United Launch Alliance for their Vulcan Centaur rocket, which should be flying later this year, and I, for one, cannot wait to watch that rocket and those engines blast off into space.
Absolutely.
Mock diamonds are certainly a thing of beauty, aren't they?
Yeah, they
Why don't
are.
we check out some of this footage from a recent BE4 test?
BE4 テストって今言ったかな。BE4 というエンジンのテストっぽいけど、うわすごい。やば。すごい。
There you go, Patrick. You can see the BE4 engine testing. We actually have 2 test cells down there that are both up and firing, which is great because you can test on one engine, get your learnings, adjust the hardware, and in parallel you can be testing on the next test cell, so you don't have a lot of downtime. So this engine here, this is a 550,000-pound of thrust engine, so that's 5 times the power of the BE3 engine, the Blue Engine 3, which is powering New Shepard today, and there will be 7 of those. That means 3.85 million pounds of thrust on liftoff when New Glenn blasts off from the Space Coast in a couple of years here. And again, as mentioned, we've had a lot of successful test firings on it, which is great. This is the first of this sort of liquefied natural gas, LNG, and liquid oxygen engine. Think of LNG like a commercial form of methane for those of you at home that are less familiar with rocket propellant. And so far, so good. And that LNG, actually, we should talk about that for a second. We picked it for a couple of reasons. For one thing, when you have a reusable rocket, you need reusable rocket engines, which means you need to be able to bring the engines home and refurbish them quickly. And when you use that sort of clean propellant, you can get in there. There's not that kind of nasty coking and other sort of nasty things that come with other types of propellant. It's green.
最近やっぱメタンが流行ってますね。メタンですよ、やっぱり。次の次世代ロケットはメタンなのではっていうのが割と多いかな。ラプターエンジン、そうだね。いつも最近見てる。
To pressurize the lines in the rocket engine, as opposed to bringing in what we use on other engines or what others use on other engines, which is helium, which is good, it works, but the problem is it's quite expensive and sometimes can be in kind of tricky supply.
Absolutely, and the great thing about LNG is that it's extremely cheap. It's the same, very similar to the gas you use at home, so very easy to get in and use for this. It keeps the cost low. The other great thing about it is because it's actually much denser than hydrogen, you can make that first stage actually quite nice and compact there. You can pack a lot of propellant into a small volume and be able to get a lot of payload up there into space.
水力はね、ロードセルがあるんです。水力を受けられる、すごい水力を受けられる。
Have enjoyed working with our partners at United Launch Alliance, who again will be using that rocket engine. They'll be using 2 of them on their Vulcan Centaur, so that should be really fun to watch. So with
板
that,
で
we are
全
at
部受け
T
て
minus 10 minutes and
その
45
板
seconds to
と
go until
他の
New
固定台
Shepard's
の
launch
間
here
を
this morning.
ロー
We
ドせる
are
って
in a
い
hole.
う
Our teams are working to make sure that New Shepard can launch today.
力を
Also
測るよ
want
う
to
な
make sure that the weather is within
力を
bounds.
電
You
圧
see, it is
と
a
か
bit
電流と
hazy
か
down there
電
in
圧
Texas.
電圧
We
だね
also,
気電
of
力
course,
か
as
な
always,
歪みを
watch
気
the
電力
winds
に
a
変
lot.
換するような
We've mentioned this
ロ
before.
ード
You
せ
can't
る
really
ロード
tell
せる
down
って
there
い
because
う
of the limited brush, but it
やつ
can
に
be quite windy, and so it's imperative that our team
センサーか
make
な
sure
ロード
that
セルっていう
everybody,
センサーに
the teams are
つ
aligned,
な
but
げてあげ
also
て
the weather is within bounds. So why don't we check out
つ
New
なげ
Shepard?
てあげるとロケットの推力が全部データとして取れるようになる。で他のところに完全に固定しちゃうと結構そこの固定されてる方に力持ってかれちゃうからなんかこうレールになってたりとか動くようになってるっていうのが多いかな。伝わるかな。とりあえず力を電気に変換するセンサーってものがあるんです。それを使って推力を測ってる。ジェフ・ベゾスはマゾンの CEO をもうすぐ退任する。なんか聞いたことあるな。そうなんだ。ベゾスさんの CEO 時代をってさっき言ってくれてましたけど、ベゾスさんはここは使わせてくれるんですかね。LE8 ちゃんてんてんてんいや LE8 はもちろんギャラクシーエクスプレスの話しますか。GX ロケットっていう日本でもね LE8 っていうメタンエンジンを使った液体エンジンがあります。実用化にはまだねなってないけど研究してらっしゃる方はまだいるよ。B4 実用化されるのもしかしてアメリカ史上初の酸素リッチ2断燃焼サイクルかな。そっかこれ酸素リッチだもんね。他のやつとかだとどうなんだ。メタン関係なく酸素リッチはアメリカ発？酸素リッチの説明するか。酸素リッチっていうのは酸素と、燃料の比の話なんだけど、酸素の方が投料費よりもだいぶ多め。なんて言えばいい？投料費の説明。投料費の説明を。
And it's part of NASA's human landing system program. And we have we based our activities for HLS, as we call it, at our factory down there. And we've actually put a full-scale pathfinder of our descent element lander in preparation of our demonstration mission to the lunar surface. This mission is going to happen a year before landing crew on the moon, which, by the way, I love saying those words. And by proving out our technology and pre-positioning equipment down there on the lunar surface, it's going to start America's sustainable return to the moon, and this time to stay. Let's check out this video.
酸素1に対して水素が原子で2あれば
One of the things that our team is doing is
それが
the demonstration flight
合
of
って
our
る
descent
かな。
1 year before we actually send crew, humans, down to the surface.
ちょっと違うかな。
And that provides an enormous amount of risk reduction. We get to practice. In Huntsville, we put together a full-scale pathfinder of the DE demo lander. We can test out, prove out the BE-7 engine, all the major subsystems, the whole propulsion system, the fluid system, the electrical power system, the fuel cells, avionics, the sensors, all of that. We can send that lander and land it autonomously on the surface before the crew goes there. We can deliver all kinds of payloads. We can deliver a metric ton of stuff. We can pre-position material, and it can be whatever you want it to be. We can begin to build up Artemis Space Camp. We're looking at several different ways of offloading payloads from the deck. The obvious thing is a crane. And we've actually got a crane provided for us by Langley Research Center at NASA. We're also looking at a Dabbit system that's being developed by Honeybee Robotics. We're not standing still with the national team. We built this full-scale pathfinder of the DE demo mission in Huntsville to enable long-term sustainability, getting America back to the moon, this time to stay.
It's so cool to watch that video. I mean, Patrick, we talk about this a lot. Step by step, ferociously, gradatum ferociter. That's our motto here at
ブルーモ
Blue.
ンちゃんも見ますか？
New
ブルーモ
Shepard
ンちゃん
leads
は
into
ね
New Glenn, and from once then we're up in orbit. Where do we go from there?
月
Hey,
着
why don't we
陸船
go
で
to
す。
the moon, right? It's all part of this longer
こういうのも作っ
roadmap
てるよ
that
って
we
いう
have
ね。
here at Blue Origin. But we're not going to do
ホール
this
ドが
mission
長
alone,
引いて
are
る
we?
か
Why
ら。
don't you talk to us about
No.
this? You've been
いろいろ多
Patrick has
分。
been part of this program, the lunar program, from the very beginning.
Yeah, it's been incredible and so exciting to see it
映像
sort
出
of
してく
go
れてる
from
と思いますけど。
where it was nascent 2-3 years
月に
ago and sort of where
着
we
陸す
are
るや
right
つ。
now. It's just, the team has done such an incredible job. And so what you were hearing earlier is Steve Squires, our chief scientist, talking about all the great things we're going to do, with the descent element and the science and all the incredible stuff we can do on the surface by landing these large payloads. That's incredible. And to me, what's even more incredible is when we get to work with Lockheed Martin, Northrop Grumman, and Draper. It's just a phenomenal team. And
They've got a little bit of
ロケットエンジン
experience.
は
Yeah,
exactly.
you know, they've
It's
done
real-
it.
水素のかな？
They've
メ
got-
タンじゃないん
They've
だよ
done
ね、
this a few
確かに
times,
ね。
perhaps, and landed on planets, guided, Apollo, small things, and they've just done an incredible job. They brought their A team on this,
水色からオレンジに変わる
and it's
年初へのグラデー
incredible
シ
to
ョン
see
が
just
美しい。
the
美
heritage there,
し
the
いよね。
incredible design,
そうなんだよ。
the
ね
ascent
えね
element
え、もう一個小ネ
that's
タ言っ
actually
て
going
も
to
いい？
be,
言わないとこ
keeping
か
the
な？また今度
astronauts
にしようかな。
alive, taking them down to the
もう一
surface,
個
and
今度
bringing
にしよ
them
うか
back
な。
up. The transfer
また今度
element,
にしよ
which
うかな。い
actually
や、
does a
リア
lot
が
of
ね、
the heavy
リア
lifting
の
with
ね、
the Delta
髪
V
の毛の
and
ね、こ
gets,
こ、
the
ここ、こ
whole
こ、これ、
stack
これ、
down
これ、
into the right
これ、
orbit and
これ、
gets them
これ、
down
それ
onto
なん
the
だよ。
surface. And of
これ、
course,
それなんだよ。この水
the
色から
lander
オレンジ
itself,
に変わ
which
るグラ
is
デーション。これ、
bringing that down to the,
それ
to
なん
the
だよ。
surface and landing them safely,
これ、これ、
all
これ。
guided by the Draper algorithms, proven since Apollo and able to, bring this down safely,
めっ
with
ちゃ
people
ちょうど
on
いい比
board,
率
which
的
of
な感
course
じか。
always
そう、
adds
めっ
even
ちゃちょ
more
うどいい比
complexity.
率的な感じ。
We
それ
can't
が
wait for
両論
to actually go
両
on
論
this.
Exactly.
No,
And
no.
again, you just mentioned
船比
the
陸比
not just the complexity of the system, but then you just
両論
mentioned
混合
we're
比
taking people to the moon.
Yeah.
Much like, today,
やっぱちゃんとロケットの
this is
活動
actually
が
what
出す
we've
べ
done
きだ
today
な。
is a
もう
step that
少し頑張
contributes
るね、
towards
リア。
that, right? With New Shepard, we talked about, obviously, we're launching and landing this rocket. We've done it several times. Previously, we've layered on today the astronaut experience operations and rehearsal that we
あ
conducted
と
earlier.
10分なんだけ
And
ど、あと
eventually, we're going to be doing that when we
26分
go
も
to the
10
moon,
分が
but that's
続いて
not
る
the
な。
only parallel between some of the operations that we're doing today and what we're going to do on the moon.
Yeah,
That
this-
descent element looks a lot, that landing looks a lot like a landing we know.
Exactly. I mean, if you can sort of shrink in New Shepard a little bit, you can sort of imagine it's so close to a decent element. I mean, there's so many parallels there. And there is, hydrogen and oxygen, right? So same propellants that we're using here.
That's
same
on our BE7 engine,
and the
correct?
BE7 engine, right? Which again builds on a lot of the heritage of the BE3PM, but it's about 10x smaller thrust. So it's a little bit of a smaller engine, but even higher performing. Again, very very compact, very excellent engine there, very efficient, high ISP. But again, builds on a lot of the same learnings from the BE3 engine on the Shepard. And of course, our landing sequence with all the landing sensors. And the same thing, we were coming in from about 100 kilometers and autonomously landing in, essentially also pretty rugged desert there. And so there's so much parallels there.
And actually, on that
No,
note,
pwede
we
na
have
niya.
tested some of that lunar landing technology on New Shepard on previous flights, correct?
Exactly. So working with NASA and a lot of their sensors, we were able to get terrain relative navigation sensors, LiDAR sensors for hazard avoidance. All of these great sensors we actually are planning to use on various parts of the landing itself. We get to test them right here in very similar environments of actually coming down and helping us, figure out what works, what doesn't work, and how to, loop it into the guidance system. It's great to be able to do it here. And actually, by the way, get the sensors back. Because as soon as it lands, you can just unbolt them, tweak them a little bit, put them back on, try it again next time.
And that, that really, New Shepard has been a test bed for many of our payload customers, but it's also nice to use it for our own technology. And again, between the, the New Shepard astronaut, human spaceflight tourism program that we'll be having coming up, plus our payload customers that have already flown on board in several of our previous missions, the lunar program that has a lot of the technologies that are being transferred into the lunar program, also New Glenn, etc. Yep. When you start to put those pieces together, you understand just the value of this rocket that you see on your screen right now. Absolutely has been critical and valuable not only to Blue Origin, but for many other programs out there.
That's right.
Okay, well, Patrick, we are at T-minus 10 minutes and 45 seconds to go. We continue to be in a hold here. Why don't we check out New Shepard as she continues to get ready for her flight to space.
ピコン。これでも見よっか。今日飛ぶニューシェパードちゃんのフライトはね、こんな感じでさっき説明したんですけど、分離した後にちょっとニョコンって出てきてるこれって言ってもちょっとこの今ねアイコン出てないからわかんないかもしれないんですけど、フィンが出るんですよ。かわいいフィンが。ちょっとそれ見てみませんか。まずね、打ち上げるときにはこんな形。結構なんか上の方がなんか結構大きめで、途中が細くて下の方に足があるって感じですね。ガチョンって出てくるのかな。でこれで閉まるのかな、こうシュッて。でフールリユーザボーすべて再使用できますって書いてますね。でニュースパーシステムではフールリユーザボー完全に再使用です。バーティカルテイクオフ、垂直に飛んでバーティカルランニング、垂直に降りてきます。でこんな感じで分離した後はこんな感じの形になるんですよ。この上のこれなんかちょこんと出てきて、であとねここにねフィンがねあるんですよ。実はここがリングフィン、ここがウェッジフィンです。みんな大好きグリッドフィンとはまた違って、このね隙間をこう空気がスーッて通ることによって、あとここの縦の板をこう立てることによって方向をこう空気を制御、機体の向きを制御できるようになってる。まっすぐちゃんと向くようになってる。センターオブプレッシャーって書いてますけど、ロケットのフィンってさ、ロケットは重心を真ん中にこうくるくる、全ての物体で重心を中心に動くから、重心周りでくるくる回転しちゃうんですよね。くるくるって。でそこに空気の力を使う羽みたいなフィンみたいなのがあるとまっすぐ向くようになります。風緑ってみんなわかるかな。ニワトリとかさ、よくさ屋根の上にさ NSW みたいな書いてるさ、あれ風緑っていうのと同じで、風の向いてくる方向にシュンって向くような。
Thank you again, everybody, for joining us live for New Shepard's 15th flight to space. There is New Shepard on the pad, ready to rock and roll here. We continue to be in a hold while our teams are getting aligned. But while we've got a little bit of time, we talked quite a bit about the booster earlier. Why don't we talk about the crew capsule? We saw earlier today the crew rehearsal. They rehearsed all of those pre-flight operations, and we had two of our stand-in astronauts go inside of the capsule, do some communications checks with Capcom, etc., tested out some of the systems in there. But why don't we let you guys inside the capsule? Let's check out some of the features. So the capsule, like the one behind us here, has 6 windows, 6 seats. As we mentioned earlier, over a third of the capsule is windows. So as we said before, when you're up there floating in space, there's just so much window, it's going to feel like you are out there in space. The seats that you see there, those are in-house designed and tested. They're based off of a helicopter seat, right? Because helicopter seats, we want the ability through that scissor mechanism that you see there, and also that Gary brought up earlier, to take out any last-minute energy if necessary. You see there in the middle, that's our escape motor as part of our safety system to be used if anything wrong is detected with the booster. You also see the white padding on the walls. That's to absorb extra noise so you get as clean and beautiful and get to experience as much of the silence of space as possible. So this capsule, when we're flying people shortly, I mean, it's as beautiful on the inside as what you're going to see on the outside. But I should note that when we designed the interior of the capsule, we did so to celebrate, if you will, the engineering that went into there. So you see there's not too many bells and whistles on it. It's really quite simple so that the astronauts, when they're up in space, they can experience space, because that's what it's all about, right? All right, so we're at T-minus 10 minutes and 45 seconds to go. We've introduced you to the capsule. New Shepard is on the pad, continuing to get ready for her launch today. So why don't we check her out?
カプセルの中も説明したし、もうすでにね、ランチパッドにもう置いてあるし、もうあとは飛ぶだけよって感じのことを言ってるんだけど、まだ飛ばないという感じです。半分ぐらいだけで分かった気がします。ごめんね、なんかリアもう今ね、どう説明したらみんなに伝わるかなと思って自分の力不足を感じている。ありがとう、分かってくれて嬉しい。風緑効果って難しいよ。なんで説明したらいいんだ。でも風緑効果だからこうさ、シュッてなるんだよ。シュッて。正安定と同安定の話もしなきゃいけない。難しい。用語を使わずどれぐらい説明難しいね。図をかけたらいいのかな。こうなんかこう図を描きながら説明できるように、なんかこうさ、ここにイラストのやつ出してきて、で図を描きながら説明するとかいいかもしれないな。時間がなんかめっちゃ余ってそうなんで、リアの新しいあれも宣伝していいですか。新しいあれもカプセルの K とロケット部分の K を同じにしなかった理由を知りたい。何かメリットあるのかな。カプセルの K は人をね6人入れるとなるとやっぱりこの K になるなって感じなんだったと思う、多分ね。でロケットの K なんだけど、ロケットってさ、軽さもあるし、それに縦横比割と重要だけでもないか、すごい太くしてしまうとなんだろう、なんて説明したいかな。軽くなるっていう観点からでもいいかな。とりあえずまず軽くしたいし、体積はちっちゃい方が良かったりもするから、無駄に合わせなきゃってわけにもいかないこともあるんじゃないかな。じゃあ短くすればいいって、確かにいい長さというものがあるんだよ、きっと。でもさ、他のロケットも割と先端部分が膨らんでることってあるよね。全部そのサイズにしちゃうとね、結構やっぱり重くなったり。ロケットになると空力より軽さなんですか。空力より軽さかどうかか。空力より軽さ、空力のところでそこのサイズが違うので引っかかると思うっていうことですか。K が違うと空力的にこうなんかありそうな気がしちゃうっていうこと。1段目と先端部分はもちろん空力的な関係は絶対あると思う。1段目飛ぶところはほとんど空気のあるところが多いから。そうだな。でも空力的にそこのところが効力になるかっていうと、それと全部太くするのとだと細くした方が良かったってことなんだろうね。先端に変な渦巻いて効率悪そうな気がしました。確かにそうだね。ここのとこに、ここのなんだろう、この ここにもないか。こうくるって丸まってるところ、そこもね、なんか他のロケットだとこうスッて渦巻かないようにこうなだらかになってるところもありますね。この子はその
Thank you again, everybody, for joining us for New Shepard's 15th flight to space. We're at T-minus 10 minutes and 45 seconds to go. We continue to be in a hold here. While we are, we're just going to continue to watch New Shepard as she gets ready for flight today. We are just aligning our teams and making sure that weather is in bounds.
ロケットの風圧聴診ってどうやって導出するんですかねって。 25% 削減がうんぬんとかやったようなやっていないような、センターオブプレッシャーかな。風圧聴診、空力聴診、このロケットだったら多分、計算でってなっちゃうから、モデルロケットの場合とかだったらどうするかっていう話だった方が面白いかな。この形だから、そっか、でも確かにそうだね。翼弦を引っ張って翼弦の線にの 25% 削減を引いて、その真ん中って習ったよね。確かにね。ロケットの場合も多分同じ感じなんじゃないかな。胴体の空力が多分効いてくるから、大きいからあれなんだけど、多分上と下にも垂直尾翼があるような感じで。あ、ホールド解除された。
Safety.
やればいけるかも。
Ranger's green. Go. Engineering. Go. Capcom. This is the flight director. New Shepard is go for launch. Booster, commence the terminal count.
We'll go flight, and we still have step 104.
All right, everybody, we are go for launch. As we heard, we are at T-minus 10 minutes to go. The countdown clock has resumed. Phew. Let's do it, Patrick.
I know.
That was, we are always looking forward to a launch, and certainly after today, we are. It's just so important that we make sure that we walk through all the checklists, make sure that everything is right within bounds, and if we need to take a couple more minutes, even 40 of them, that's quite all right with us.
That's right. You don't want to have go fever. You want to do this right and by the book.
Exactly.
I do want to say, can you imagine if you were actually sitting in a capsule right now, you would have heard this go no-go poll in your headset, and I think, at least for me, this is just completely broken out in goosebumps just knowing that the launch
I am right now.
so exciting.
All right, and now all eyes are on New Shepard. We're into our last-minute checks. They are underway as New Shepard comes alive for flight. We have just a few minutes to go before final check, so why don't we take a moment and walk through the booster and some of its key features. We did a little bit earlier in context of similarities and parallels to New Glenn, but let's focus on New Shepard. She really is the workhorse of the journey to space. As we mentioned before, New Shepard is powered by the BE-3 engine that's essentially fueled by water, liquid oxygen, and liquid hydrogen. It propels the rocket to space and restarts for a controlled pinpoint landing on the pad. It's also uniquely throttleable, and that means it's able to slow the booster down to just about 8 kilometers per hour or 5 miles per hour for landing. And you can see at the top of the booster there's the ring fin, and the ring fin houses the drag brakes as well as the wedge fins. The wedge fins for stability, drag brakes to really cut down the speed. You'll see those will cut down the speed in about, that will cut the booster speed in about half. The drag brakes are critical, right? We talk about the balance between the engine and the booster's role in slowing down the rocket, but really it's just some simple aerodynamics from the drag brakes. The aft fins, as you can see towards the bottom of the booster, stabilize the vehicle during ascent, but also steer it back to the landing pad on descent. And they're actually strong enough to guide the rocket through airspeeds of up to Mach 4. And you think we talked about earlier about the winds aloft. Those are critical, those fins, in making sure that we get our rocket precisely back to the pad. Lastly, we have the landing gear. So all rockets take off, but not all rockets land. And as a fully reusable rocket, the new Shepard booster uses landing gear that deploys just from the last second.
That's right. This is an incredible machine. Kudos to Gary and the team that have spent, all this time designing it and getting it just right. And like we said, this booster design and all of the components inform so much of what we do here. We talked about the similarity between this and the first stage of New Glenn, of course, and the similarities there with the aerodynamics and the design. It's the same propellant combination and a similarly derived engine for the upper stage of New Glenn. So obviously lots of design heritage there. And we talked about, of course, all the great learnings we applied to our descent element as part of the lunar lander. So truly, you can almost think of New Shepard as a sort of that first path of the roadmap, and then it just branches out to all these other things that we've done.
Exactly. And we should also mention the reusability element of it, which is critical, right? With our vision of millions of people living and working in space, we need the ability to turn the rocket around quickly, reuse it again, bring down the cost of access to space. All right, you're looking at a live shot of New Shepard on the pad. We are T-minus 6 minutes to go until flight. Why don't we take a look at her?
ニューシェパードちゃんのね、打ち上げ空撮がすごいかっこいいから楽しみにしてて。他の1度目戻ってくるやつもリングフィントに確かにが備わってるんですか？他の1段目戻ってくるやつって今だとファルコン9の1段目と、それからあとはSN、スターシップちゃんの2つがあるんですけど、ファルコン9ちゃんはの1段目はグリッドフィンっていうハエたたきみたいなしましまの網がついてますね。それはフィンですね。でスターシップちゃんの方は本当にここについてる三角形のこれ四角形台形のこれと同じようなフィンがついてます。頭の方についてるのと下の方についてるのと4枚かな。リングフィンのやつってあんまり見たことないかもしれない。グリッドフィンはあるけど。リングフィンってリングフィットみたい。リングフィン。なんかリング型のペットボトルを切って作るようなおもちゃみたいなのはあるみたいなんだけど、実用化されてるロケットでリングフィン使ってるのって他にあるのかな。でもブルーオリジンも実用化されてるとは言えないのかな。
Thank you again for joining us for New Shepard's 15th flight to space. You are looking at a live shot of New Shepard. She's just about to begin her final preparations for her 15th flight to space. We are at T-minus 3 minutes and 10 seconds to go until launch. So for those of you that are just joining us now, earlier in our show, we showed our astronaut experience through rehearsal. Very exciting. Now all seems to have gone perfectly well. And now we're ready for New Shepard's flight flight itself. So at T-minus 2 minutes, the rocket is going to go into autonomous mode. We throw the show over to her, and the rocket is in charge of itself from liftoff, its entire flight to space, and its landing back. The rocket itself on the landing pad just 2 miles north of the launch pad. In just a moment here, we are going to see the engine gimbal check, as well as what we call the built-in test, the bit checks. We want to make sure that we can move the aerodynamic surfaces freely so that they, just like an airline pilot does before his or her flight, to make sure they've got free range of motion. We also, at the top of the tower, of course, have the gantry that will also retract.
That's right, and Ariane, right there on the gantry, you see these big sun shields there. You know, one of the, if you have 6 very large windows, like you said, and 60% of the capsules is actually windows by volume. Ah, there you go.
There it goes, the retraction.
Retraction right there. So we actually need the shades there just to keep the sun out of the capsule. You want to make the astronaut experience as comfortable as possible. You want to keep them nice, cool temperature. As I'm sure you don't want to turn into a greenhouse with all of this big, beautiful windows. So what our team did is actually put these shades in. It makes it a great experience. And then, now if you or I were in there, we'd be looking out and just...
Ready for launch. Ready for launch. A simple but beautiful solution. All right, there go the aft fin checks. There are 4 of those fins at the base of the rocket.
あと少し。たくさん来てくれてありがとう。薄いクリアって言います。リアの新衣装の話したかったけど、まあいいや。ブリッジ引っ込んだ。ブリッジ引っ込んだ。あと少しですよ。4って書いてる。
Base of the rocket there. There goes the gimbal check.
デシデシって音聞こえるね。デシデシ。
The engine gimbal, of course, is critical.
音が結構大きいかもしれないので音量ついでお願いしますね。フィンがこう動いて。
That takes us to launch for a T-minus 30 seconds. Why don't we hand it over to Mission Control for New Shepard's 15th flight to space? It's gonna be worth the wait, man. Godspeed, New Shepard.
15回目の打ち上げ NS-15 あと20秒で打ち上げうまく垂直離着陸できるでしょうか
T-minus 10 9 8 7 6 5 4 command engine start 2 1 0
Beautiful liftoff from our launch site 1 in West Texas. You can follow along as she gains speed in the bottom left corner of your screen. There's the speedometer, altimeter in the middle there.
高さはもう5000フィート5000フィート今来ました。このまま来てくれてありがとう。今飛んだばっかり。タワークリア。あ、タワークリア、そうだね。タワークリア。そろそろマックス Q も変えます。もういつも言ってるから。そうみんな覚えてきたかもしれないけど。機体にかかる先端にかかるね動圧。それがマックスになります。このマックス Q 一番動圧がしんどいところ。マックス Q を超えたらロケットにかかる力は少しマシになるかな。さっきのさ映像すごくなかった？空撮のやつもう CG ですかってくらい。
All right, right about this time in your flight, on ascent, you're going to max at about 3 Gs.
だいたい3 G ぐらいかかってると。
The max Gs that you pull as an astronaut on New Shepard actually is on descent. So here on ascent, it's about 3 Gs, and it comes on gradually as you go faster and get higher up there.
今速さが1200、1300マイルパーアワー。わかりません。何キロでしょうか。ニューシェパードオーチュード高さは9万フィート。あ、ピカピカ光ってる。綺麗ですね。
Coming up here on Miko, main engine cutoff. So far, a clean burn from our BE3 engine.
BE3 エンジンがそろそろカットオフされましたかね。見えたね。今、メインエンジンカットオフでした。エンジンが止まった後、少しだけフリーフライトというかまっすぐね、ふわふわって飛びます。そしてその後に分離のタイミングがあります。ちょっと分離見えるかな。ゼロ G って書いてます。
Lost the link to the J layer. So far, though, everything appears to be nominal. So far, what we have seen a clean liftoff. We did have max Q, maximum dynamic pressure. That is essentially for the rocket the hardest point in the flight. And then we had main engine cutoff. And now, as you can see, separation. Here we've got our infrared camera, especially on the left side. As you've seen earlier in the show, it is a little hazy down there in Texas, so we are going to rely on multiple cameras here as the vehicle continues its ascent towards space. We have passed over just about here the Kármán line. There it is, 100 kilometers, or about 328,000 feet. If you were inside there, Patrick, you will have become an astronaut. And we're just waiting for the two craft to hit their apogee. You'll know they've hit apogee when the speed hits 0 in the bottom left corner of your screen. There it is, apogee just at about 346,000 feet. Of course, we're going to have official stats for you after the flight via Twitter, but so far so good, Patrick. Looks to be a nominal flight of New Shepard. You see the booster on the right and the capsule on the left. This is when they've begun their descent. As we've seen in the past, obviously the booster is going to beat the capsule down to Earth. It's more better aerodynamically shaped.
34万フィート。34万フィート。だいたい100
And thank you again, everybody, for joining us live for New Shepard's 15th flight to space. We are 5 minutes into what appears to be so far a nominal flight for New Shepard. We, of course, preceded the launch by what appears to be a perfectly executed astronaut experience rehearsal. While there are no astronauts on board today, that was a critical step towards our march towards first human flight. 分離をしてカプセルはもう100キロ超えてます。超えて帰ってきても100キロは。All right, we've picked up our long-range cameras again. There you see the booster, the bottom of the screen, and the capsule on the top. でカプセルは上側にあって。At this point, the booster is re-entering the atmosphere. It means it's going to have air pressure against which those aerodynamic surfaces Patrick and I were walking you through can push against to guide the rocket back to its landing pad. And to think this rocket will have peaked at almost Mach 4, and it's by the time it touches down, it's just going to touch down at about 8 kilometers per hour or 5 miles per hour. So relatively speaking, a nice soft landing. Critical, as we talked about reusability, the softer the landing, the quicker you can turn it around, right? You're not jostling the rocket, you're not jostling the hardware. You want to be able to flip it around nice and quickly. So there you see the aft fins. We also call them the pie fins because they're shaped like pie wedges. ウェッジフィンを開いて白い見えるなんかこう雲みたいなのを引いてますね。かわいいね。うまいこと着陸してくれるといいな。 All right, there go the drag brakes, and there you see all the speed bleeding off of the vehicle, and waiting for our BE3 engine to relight. There it goes. よし行け。きたー。この角度やばい。Landing gear deployed. touchdown. Welcome back, new Shepard.
Oh my God, what a beautiful landing,
I think that was one of the smoothest landings I've seen in this rocket. It almost looks unreal. It looks like CGI. I know some of you on the internet seem to think that. Believe me, that is a reusable rocket that takes off and lands. What a beautiful landing.
It looks like it's ready to go again.
Yeah, just put in those drag brakes, put in the wide fins, fuel her up. Let's go again. But until then, the show is not over. We do have the crew capsule here. On board, we have Mannequin Skywalker, as well as a couple of cable lockers filled with postcards from Club for the Future, from students from around the world. We are waiting to see the drogue chutes come out. They will be followed by the main parachutes. A little wink from one of those big, beautiful windows. Look at that. There go the drogues.
出ました。ちっちゃいやつですね。その後に。はい。
And here come the mains.
はい、メインパラシュート開きの。
All 3 parachutes are out. We're looking for full inflation.
ゆっくり
and
ふ
there
わ
they
ふわふ
go.
わふわ。クラゲさんみたいだね。
I love that.
いや、かわいいな、かわいいな、かわいいな。かわいいな。美味しそう。なんか。
So far, so good. A nominal launch, nominal landing for the booster. We're waiting for the crew capsule to come into land. We're at about 1,600 feet to go. And a nice smooth descent at about 16 or so miles per hour.
パラシュート、ドロッグシュートの解散。
Just at about 25 or so kilometers per hour. That is a nice, smooth descent. There's the valley of our West Texas launch site 1 as we call it. What a day so far, Patrick, let me tell you. Now, at 800 feet to go here, we should remind everybody that we do have the retro thrust system that kicks on just in the last moment. Basically, it just creates a nice air cushion for the capsule so that if you, next time, hopefully, you know, when you and I are up in that capsule one day, we are going to be getting a nice air cushion underneath the capsule.
リアルタイム映像とは思えない角度のさ、空撮だからかな。すごい精度がいいというか。
And touchdown.
Oh, it was beautiful.
Absolutely spectacular. Patrick, I told you it was going to be worth the wait. Look at that.
Definitely. I love you can just see it just as it lands. You see that puff of air and it kicks up all that dust, but it's just such a gentle landing right there.
A beautiful launch and landing for both the crew capsule and the booster. Team Blue, congratulations to all of you. What a day. You should be so proud.
着地の衝撃すごそう。確かにどんなくらいなんだろうね。
soon, you know, if you're an
気を失わないくらいだったらいいけどね。
that is going to be a ride of a lifetime.
で、これ何に使うロケットなの？この上のカプセルに乗って宇宙を楽しむロケットです。
Mannequin Skywalker had today.
He gets to have all the fun, gets to go everywhere.
I know, that guy.
で、ふわふわふわってして帰ってくるためのロケット。
To bring it all right back around where we started the day, you know, as exciting as this launch is, we actually started with, you know, the astronaut rehearsal, sort of on top of the normal launch preparation, and now we're going to bring it all back. Those same standing astronauts are going to go back out to the capsule. Once we open the hatch, they're actually going to get in, and we're going to practice and rehearse, essentially getting the astronauts out safely, getting them back into the van, have them reunite with their loved ones, and that's when they would go off and celebrate this sort of incredible experience they would have just had. So, you know, I can tell you that when we've done this in rehearsals and the people have just been sitting out there when this has just happened, you know, they're just emotional. Even just sitting in at the very end, they get emotional. I can only imagine what it'd be like to actually fly and get landed.
We see it time and time again. You saw a little bit. Obviously, we didn't have the audio from the safety shelter earlier today, but you know, seeing the reactions of our stand-in astronauts from having done the rehearsal, they get super, you know, psyched and worked up, as they should, right? And then same thing, as you just mentioned, when they come out of the capsule, it is, you know, we put them in, but then they come out again, and it's just this elation. And to think, you know, next time, you know, coming up soon, when we start putting people in that capsule, you compound it with a launch to space in there. With a full of adrenaline, you better believe they are going to be absolutely psyched and ready to celebrate.
Absolutely.
Well, so the recovery process is underway. It goes like this. So since the capsule has landed, we do have the recovery team, which includes a couple of lead vehicles, safety vehicles, and of course our crew member 7. They are quickly traveling out to the landing site. Now, this team's job, if there are astronauts on board, is to ensure that the astronauts safely exit the capsule. The astronaut families, as Patrick mentioned, in parallel are on their way, would be on their way to come welcome our astronauts. Now, once the astronauts would step out of the capsule, newly minted an astronaut, as we mentioned, it is time to celebrate. Now, simultaneously, we also have another team that is heading out to the booster to save the vehicle and get it back to the barn. I mean, we joked about the quick turnaround. Obviously, we're not flying again today, but it's the keeping the cost of spaceflight down. You have to work on the operations, get those tight, get them quick to be able to reuse the vehicle as much and as quickly as possible.
Absolutely. That asset turnaround is absolutely key there. And again, the point of today's flight was to mimic the astronaut experience profile under real launch conditions, right? Astronaut loading is complex, launch is complex, doing them both together is super complex, and doing them well, and you saw that happen today, is going to be a huge step forward.
Actually, while we've got a moment, why don't we check out some of the highlights from today's launch and landing. So we had New Shepard on the pad there, a nice ignition. And a clean lift off with her go. That rumble, you can see it in the cameras, and when you're down there in Texas, the whole valley feels like it's shaking when that 110,000 pounds of thrust is lit underneath the engine.
You want to go to space? Yes! I want to go to space.
And this angle. Patrick, this is one of my favorite angles. It's very reminiscent of, the Saturn V taking off from the pad during the Apollo days.
Absolutely. Super reminiscent, super vintage look. Now, this angle right here is one you would not have seen back in the Apollo days. But this is the kind of the cool thing about having these drones up there. You can get these beautiful shots of the rocket just going by, just flying up.
So close you can touch it, right?
I know.
All right, here comes the booster back for its soft landing. Again, Patrick, I think this is one of the smoothest, most controlled landings I've seen from this rocket.
It makes it look easy.
It's like it's just dangling from a string.
結構飛んでね、こうトントントントンって。あとこの下からの映像も結構。ひゃっほー、かっこいい、かっこいい。
And that's one of the benefits of having such controllability in the engine is you can really sort of dial that thrust in and ease your way down onto the launch pad.
Exactly. And talking about the, we were talking earlier about the lessons that we're taking from New Shepard and pulling into New Glenn. That throttle ability on the engines is critical. And then last but not least, of course, our capsule with a nice air-cushioned landing. And you can see actually the parachute's dropping pretty close to the capsule, meaning there's not too much wind there out on the ground today, which is beautiful. And now live shots from the recovery team. They're out there. You can also see, again, we're in preparation of bringing the stand-in astronauts back. We're going to get them into the capsule so that we can practice the egress and taking out of the astronauts from the capsule. Again, coming to you soon. This has been such a critical step, this astronaut experience rehearsal in the march towards human spaceflight. Let's just take a look here. setting up the stairs. It's a couple feet off. It's about a meter from the ground
着
up
陸
to
場とそうし直し
the
た
hatch
ね。なんか
itself.
ね、焦げて
So
ないよ
making
う
sure
に見
they've
えた
got
け
a
ど、
nice, comfortable step out
どうなんでしょうか。
Yeah.
onto the desert
足出した
floor.
瞬間
I'm
安定
sure
するの
my
すご
heart
い
would
な
have。been beating so heavily through this. You know, I might be a little wobbly on my feet
最
coming
後
out
ふ
of
わ
this
ーっと
thing
ね
just
飛ん
having
で
been
トントントン
literally
とあ
up
り
in
ましたね。めっ
space
ちゃかっ
like
こよかっ
just a
た
few
な。
minutes ago.
Just incredible feeling, I can imagine. Cannot wait. 7 Kevin Sprogg there in the,
今
in
日
the
の
blue coveralls. He's done an incredible job, as well as Sarah Knights, our crew member 7. All right, some
見て
mission
106
recap
メ
statistics
ー
here.
ター
These
で
are
すって。
unofficial. We
106
will have
メ
the
ータ
official
ー。
ones
じゃないや、
after the
106 キ
flight.
ロメーターごめん。106
Maximum
キロメ
ascent
ーター。
maximum
到達しま
ascent
した。
velocity 3,600.
一番
Maximum
速
ascent
くて
velocity 3,615
3615
kilometers
キ
per
ロメー
hour.
ターパーア
Crew
ワーですね。
capsule apogee, its highest point in flight, 106,021 meters. Mission start time, 11:51 a.m. Central Daylight Time, and mission elapsed time 10 minutes and 27 seconds. Just an incredible day.
Very cool, very cool. And to commemorate today's launch, you can definitely pick up some of our official NS-15 mission patches and other really cool swag from our shop. And you can go to shop.blueorigin.com to do that. There's a lot of cool things out there. I saw the mission patch earlier. It has the, you know, the silhouette of the 4, you know, stand-ins there. It's extremely cool. Yeah, there we go. I think Gary is the one on the left there.
Yeah,
maybe.
exactly.
I'm not sure.
Exactly.
But it's a cool one. I'm definitely picking up one of those right after this.
Fantastic. So with that, Patrick, it is time to close out the show. Thank you so much for being my co-host.
Always my pleasure. Thank you
A
for having
wonderful
me.
launch. As I told you, worth the wait for all of you as well. Thank you for staying with us for the whole flight, New Shepard's 15th flight to space and back. Please follow us on Twitter and Instagram for all the latest updates. And please continue to stay safe out there. Until our next launch, as always, Gradatum Ferociter.
See you. Thank you. じゃあ終わっちゃったみたいなので、もう一回だけ打ち上げ見ていきましょうか。
We did so to celebrate, if you will, the engineering that went into there. So you see, there's not too many bells and whistles on it. It's really quite simple, so that the astronauts, when they're up in space, they can experience space.
中身見せてもらったから中身だけもう一回見たいな。中身だけ。
All right, so we're at T-minus 10 minutes and 45 seconds to go. We've introduced you to the capsule. New Shepard is on the pad, continuing to get ready for her. Out some of the systems in there. But why don't we let you guys inside the capsule? Let's check out the one behind us here. Has 6 windows, 6 seats. As we mentioned earlier, over a third of the capsule is windows. So as we said before, you know, when you're up there floating in space, there's just so much window, it's going to feel like you are out there in space. The seats that you see there, those are in-house designed and tested. They're based off of a helicopter seat, right? Because helicopter seats, we want the ability through that scissor mechanism that you see there, and also that Gary brought up earlier, to take out any last-minute energy if necessary. You see there in the middle, that's our escape motor as part of our safety system to be used if anything wrong is detected with the booster. You also see the white padding on the walls. That's to absorb extra noise, so you get as clean and beautiful and get to experience as much of the silence of space as possible. So this capsule, when we're flying people shortly, I mean, it's as beautiful on the inside as what you're going to see on the outside.
4. Command engine start. 2.
For New Shepard's 15th flight to space, it's going to be worth the wait, man.
来てくれてありがとうございました。もう一回だけじゃあ再生をしておきますね。セールで 99% オフでもいいだと思う。結構厳しいかな。高いかな。20万ドルだっけ。20万ドル高いな。
T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4. Command engine
アンビリ
start.
カルがいかに取れるところが見えるかも。
2,
着火してから飛ぶまで結構時間あるんですね。ちょっとこの映像をリアルタイムで出してくるの本当にすごいよね。かっこいい。
Beautiful liftoff from our launch site 1 in West Texas. You can follow along as she gains speed in the bottom left corner of your screen. There's the speedometer. altimeter in the middle
次
there.
の打ち上げはいつになるかまだね、これは分かってないんですけど、16もどんどん打ち上げてすぐに人が乗れるようになるはずだと思いますので、ぜひとも
First milestone on our trip to space, max Q. That's when the dynamic pressure on the vehicle is at its maximum. The toughest point in flight for the vehicle.
ブルーオリジンさんの打ち上げの元配信は URL 概要欄に載ってますので、ぜひともそちらのグッドボタンとかも押してみてください。いただいた質問とかでね、分かんなかったやつとかはちゃんと調べてまた来ますね。いい映像だ。本当にかっこいいよねこれ。しかも下から結構撮れてるっていうのが偉いですね。今日めちゃくちゃ晴れてたんだね。
Alright, right about this time in your flight, you know, on ascent, you're gonna max at about 3 Gs. We've noted it before, the max Gs that you pull as an astronaut on New Shepard actually is on descent. So here on ascent, it's about 3 Gs and it comes on gradually as you go faster and get higher up there. Until, of course, main engine cutoff and separation, and that is when you get to feel those beautiful 0 Gs. We're waiting for that here. Next stops, MECO and separation. Coming up here on MECO, main engine cutoff. So far, a clean burn from our BE3 engine.
ロケットの先端にかかる、先端とか全体にかかる圧力、飛んでると空気がこう圧縮されていってググって圧力がかかっていくんですよ、ロケットに。でそのロケットにかかる圧力のことを動圧っていうの。動圧、制圧動圧とかあるんだけど、その動圧がダイナミックプレッシャーって英語で言うんですけど、流体の持ってる運動エネルギーすべてこうグッと流体の持ってるエネルギーを圧力で表す動圧って言うんだけど、つまり先端にかかる圧力って感じかな。
And then we had main engine cutoff, and now, as you can see, separation. Here we've got our infrared camera, especially on the left side.
ロケットにかかる空気の力が一番辛いとこって感じ。一番辛いとこっていうとあれかな。ロケットにかかる空気の、運動エネルギー、使ってくる空気の重さとも違うんだけど、運動エネルギーが一番マックスになるところで、ロケットからしたらそこにすごい壁があるような感じに感じるというか、空気の壁があるように感じる。そこにかかってくる圧力エネルギーが一番マックスなのがマックス級で、そこを超えたら少し楽になります。そんな感じです。
There it is, apogee just at about 346,000 feet. Of course, we're going to have official stats for you after the flight via Twitter, but so far so good, Patrick. Looks to be a nominal flight of New Shepard. You see the booster on the right and the capsule on the left. This is when they've begun their descent. As we've seen in the past, obviously the booster is going to beat the capsule down to Earth, as it's more better aerodynamically shaped.
その動圧っていうのがね、味噌動圧ってね、なんかパッと言われてなんで圧力と違うのって思っちゃうけど、違うんだよね。なんて説明したらいいものか。エネルギー、密度とか。
And thank you again everybody for joining us live for New Shepard's 15th flight to space. We are 5 minutes into what appears to be so far a nominal flight for New Shepard. We of course preceded the launch by what appears to be a perfectly executed astronaut experience rehearsal. While there are no astronauts on board today, that was a critical step towards our march towards first human flight.
式とかはまた 動画出すときに説明したいな。分離して
All right, we picked up our long-range cameras again. There you see the booster, the bottom of the screen, and the capsule on the top.
昔 5G とか 7G とか聞いた気がしたけど、それぐらいなのねって書いてる。
Re-entering the atmosphere, it means it's going to have air pressure against which those aerodynamic surfaces Patrick and I were walking you through can push against to guide the rocket back to its landing pad.
7G とかだとさすがに
And to think this rocket will have peaked at almost Mach 4, and it's, by the time it touches down, it's just going to touch down at about 8 kilometers per hour or 5 miles per hour. So relatively speaking, a nice soft landing. Critical, we talk about reusability. The softer the landing, the quicker you can turn it around, right? You're not jostling the rocket, you're not jostling the hardware. You want to be able to flip it around nice and quickly. So there you see the aft fins. We also call them the pie fins because they're shaped like pie wedges.
楕円軌道を描いて一番遠いところでロケットエンジンを吹くとさらに遠い軌道に乗ることができるから、アポジキックモーターっていうのがロケットエンジンのロケットの一つに衛星についてるやつであることもある。アポジキックモーター。さあ、体験再突入してエントリーして着陸
Landing gear deployed. Oh, look at that smooth landing. And touchdown. Welcome back, new Shepard.
Oh my God, what a beautiful landing,
I think that was one of the smoothest landings I've seen of this rocket. It looks like CGI. I know some of you on the internet seem to think that. Believe me, that is a reusable rocket that takes off and lands. What a beautiful landing.
It looks like it's ready to go again.
こんばんくり、ありがとう、塚原さん来てくれて嬉しいよ。さっき打ち上げがあったニューシェパラちゃんの打ち上げをリプレイ再生してみております。同圧は簡単に言うと流体の運動エネルギーを圧力の形式で表したものと覚えた。そうだね。なんか運動エネルギーをこうパッと分かって圧力のこうっていう風に言えたらもう完璧です。大丈夫です。素晴らしいです。さすがです。
A little wink from one of those big beautiful windows. Look at that. There go the drogues.
ドローグシュートが開いてパラシュート。
And here come the mains.
メインパラシュート。Here comes the main パラシュートが開きの
All three parachutes are out. We're looking for full inflation.
この開き方かわいいよね。なんかこうちっちゃいパラシュートがこうふわっとクラゲになるのかわいい。この前の洋上に着陸するやつよりはっきり見れてよかった。ファルコン9ちゃんのことかな。
So far, so good. A nominal launch.
このロケットはね
nominal landing for the booster. We're waiting for the crew capsule to come into land. We're at about 1,600 feet to go. And a nice smooth descent at about 16 or so miles per hour.
カメラワークは素晴らしいですよね。本当に。
Just at about 25 or so kilometers per hour. That is a nice smooth descent. There's the valley of our West Texas launch site. Launch site 1 as we call it.
構造的に結構攻め攻めだなって思うけど。
What a day so far, Patrick. Let me tell you.
あと羽のマークが可愛い。
Now, at 800 feet to go here, we should remind everybody that we do have the retro thrust system that kicks on just in the last moment. Basically, it just creates a nice air cushion for the capsule so that if you next time, hopefully, you know, when you and I are in that capsule one day, we are going to be getting a nice air cushion underneath the capsule.
グミに見えるのありや。なんかこんなグミあった気がする。
And touchdown.
Absolutely
spectacular. Patrick, I told you it was going to be worth the wait. Look at that.
Definitely. I love it. You can just see it just as it lands. You see that puff of air and it picks up all that dust, but it's just such a gentle landing right there.
A beautiful launch and landing for both the crew capsule and the booster. Team Blue, congratulations to all of you. What a day. You should be so proud. And again, Patrick, soon, you know, if you're an astronaut on board, that is going to be a ride of a lifetime. While we've got a moment, why don't we check out some of the highlights from today's launch and landing. So we had New Shepard on the pad there, a nice ignition. And a clean lift off. Look her go. That rumble, you can see it in the cameras, and when you're down there in Texas, the whole valley feels like it's shaking when that 110,000 pounds of thrust is lit underneath the engine. And this angle. Patrick, this is one of my favorite angles. It's very reminiscent of, you know, the Saturn V taking off from the pad during the Apollo days.
Absolutely. Super, you know, super reminiscent, super vintage look. Now, this angle right here is one you would not have seen back in the Apollo days. But this is the kind of the cool thing about having these drones up there. So you can get these beautiful shots of the rocket just going by as it's flying up.
So close you can touch it, right?
I know.
All right, here comes the booster back for its soft landing. Again, Patrick, I think this is one of the smoothest, most controlled landings I've seen from this rocket.
It makes it look easy.
It's like it's just dangling from a string.
これいいよね、これ。パカーって全部さ、ちょっとこれコマ送りしてもいい？ちょっとこれコマ送りしてもいい？見たいんだけど。さっきのやつめっちゃ見たい。
And that's one of the benefits of having such controllability in the engine is you can really sort of dial that thrust in and ease your way down.
Exactly. And talking about this, we were talking earlier about the lessons.
Now, this angle right here is one you would not have.
これすごくない？あ。ちょっとコマ送りしちゃう。この安定感本当にすごいよね、ブルーオリジンさんは。で、ここも。
All right, here comes the booster back for its soft landing.
足がちょっと出る。ここすごいよね、この。
Again, Patrick, I think this is one of.
ここの上から降ってくるとこが見たいんだけど、これかな？誰かな？あ、このまま行ったら。
The smoothest, most controlled landings I've seen from this rocket.
見られるかな？
It makes it look easy.
It's like it's just dangling from a string.
これ。だんだんやってくるの。足も出てて、で、ここに効力になるようなやつがついてますね。戦闘機とかにもよくついてるよね。背中に畳みたいなやつ。あれと同じやつ。で、ここにフィンがあって、ここにもフィンがあって、って感じかな。足出すのと同時に、この効力を発生させるこの板がうわーっと出て。そういえば飛行機でもあれだね。普通の飛行機でも着陸した後にこう、翼のところからこうビローンって出る。あんな感じなのかもしれない。すごい形してるね。シャキーン。フラップってやつでしたっけ？フラップは前についてるやつかな。でもフラップって全部のこと言う？翼の前縁のフラッ
that's one of the benefits of having such controllability in the engine is you can really sort of dial that thrust in and ease your way down onto the launch pad.
Exactly. And talking about we're talking earlier about the lessons that we're taking from New Shepard and pulling into New Glenn. That throttleability on the engines is critical. And then last but not least, of course, our capsule with a nice air-cushioned landing. And you can see actually the parachute dropping pretty close to the capsule, meaning there's not too much wind there out on the ground today, which is beautiful. And now live shots from the recovery team that are out there. You can also see, again, we're in preparation of bringing the stand-in astronauts back. We're going to get them into the capsule so that we can practice the egress and taking out of the astronauts from the capsule. Again, coming to you soon. This has been such a critical step, this astronaut experience rehearsal in the march towards human spaceflight. Let's just take a look here. Setting up the stairs, it's a couple feet off. It's about a meter from the ground up to the hatch itself. So making sure they've got a nice, comfortable step out.
Yeah.
はい、ということで今日の打ち上げはすごい大成功でした。めっちゃ見応えあったくない？やっぱりニューシェパードミッションいいな。次の打ち上げもとっても楽しみです。いつかね、多分もう相当遠くない未来なんですが、人間を打ち上げて飛ぶ瞬間がきっとやってくると思いますので、その時もちょっと楽しみにしててください。今回は宇宙飛行士さんを乗せるようなリハーサルの機会とかもねあったので、本当にもうあとすぐなんじゃないかな。私中に人間乗せて飛べれたらいいな。あら、黒くなっちゃった。
That takes us to launch for a T-minus 30 seconds. Why don't we hand it over to mission control for New Shepard's 15th flight to space? It's gonna be worth the wait, man. Godspeed, New Shepard.
じゃあ音をね少しあれなんですけど、この辺で配信終わりにしたいと思います。リアの次の配信なんですが、ちょっとねわかんないけど明日もしできたら何かしら配信しようかなと思ってます。できなかったらごめんね。できたら多分スーパーリミナルの配信しようかなと思ってます。それから今週末なんですけど、リアのねツイッターやこの間の半年記念でも言ったんですけど、リアの新しいお衣装を
You can follow along as she gains speed in the bottom left corner of your screen. There's the speedometer, altimeter in the middle there.
お衣装をね発表する機会を設けようと思います。今週末の土日のどっちかになると思うんだけど、ちょっとね予定とすり合わせて予定決まったら宣伝を打ちまくります。のでぜひとも、リアの新衣装さん見に来てくれると嬉しいです。新衣装さんのシルエットだけ出しときますね。はい、こんなのなのでぜひとも見に来てください。よろしくお願いします。イエーイ。ここに置いとこう。はい。てな感じでございます。楽しみ、ありがとう。フラップも実は前期フラップ、前円フラップという前についてるタイプのフラップもあるね。さっきもそう公園にこうついてるこうね、公園伸ばすタイプと前円をこう前にこう出すタイプのフラップとあって、フラップとかフラッペロンとかもねあるし、新車飛んでったシューってね飛ばして、でもこれ以上いけなかった。あ、ここくらいまでいけたわ。シュー垂直着陸楽しみでしょ。ということでぜひとも楽しみにしててください。明日はもしかしたらスーパーリミナルやるかもしれません。ちょっとねタイミングとかね帰ってくる時間とかの関係で結構ゲリラ系の感じになってしまってるんですけど、 また来てくれたら嬉しいなと思います。あ、それから今回飛んだのは NS-15 なんですけど、今週4月20日かな、もう少し後かな、今月中にはSN-15 SN、つまりスターシップの方、スペース X さんのスターシップ SN-15 の方も飛行試験があるかもしれないということを聞いていますので、もしかしたらまた面白い、爆発じゃなかったりとか、着陸だったりとかかな、見れるかなと思います。今日はこんなに遅い時間なのにたくさんの人に来てくれて、来ていただいて本当に嬉しかったです。結構待ってていただいたこともねいっぱいだと思うので、今日はねちゃんと寝て明日もしっかり頑張ロケットをしてくださいね。
As you've seen earlier in the show, it is a little hazy down there in Texas, so we are going to rely on multiple cameras here as the vehicle continues its ascent towards space. We have passed over just a...
よし!
There goes the drag brakes.
ということで皆さんお疲れ様でした。
Leading off of the vehicle.
エンジンの音がティンパニーかと思った。確かにティンパニーみたいな音したね、ボーンってね。お疲れ様でした。人生初の飛行機の座席が奇跡的に横のある窓側席、まじまじと様子を見ていた。いいな、リアも横のあるところにいて行くの好きだよ。タッチダウン
and touchdown. Welcome back, new
おやすみなさいみんな。ちゃんと寝てね。後から来た人にはやってなかったけど、実は今日リアの配信 1080p なんですよ。前よりロケットの映像が綺麗に見えると思う。実はつよつよ PC の初配信でございました。ちゃんと配信できたようでよかったです。エビちゃん、ハロー Thank you for coming to my live stream。 来てくれてありがとう。けど今日はここで終わり。もう何時間 ?1 時間ちょい、2時間だね、配信してました。今日ちゃんと打ち上げあったので、ぜひともまた巻き戻したりとか、あとはね、元のブルーオリジンさんの方も見てみてください。Twitter でもよくねリツイートとかしたりするので、ぜひともリツイートしてみてください。よし、おやすみなさい。お疲れ様でした。本当に夜遅くまでありがとう。おやすみソニアン、おやすみソニアン。つよつよ、そうつよつよ PC。つよつよ。心なしかリアもちょっといつもより多く動いております。目もキラキラするし。キラキラキラキラ。赤い見直すか大丈夫。よかった。ありがとう。来てくれて本当に嬉しいよ。ありがとうね。こうかな。
So far, so good. A nominal launch, nominal landing for the booster. We're waiting for the crew capsule to come into land. We're at about 1,600 feet to go.
じゃあ皆さんおやすみなさい。シュッとします。シュッとします。画面が小さくて 1080p の意味がないですが、つよつよ PC デビューおめでとうございます。ありがとうございます。1080p、まあ大きい画面で見てくれる時もきっとあると信じて、アーカイブねあるし。おやすみソニア、ありがとう。てなちゃんおやすみソニア。もーちゃんおやすみソニア、ありがとうございます。パランダちゃんおやすみソニア、ありがとう。おやすみ。たまちゃんおやすみ、ありがとう。なやちゃんおやすみなさい、ありがとう。おやすみなさい。ドットネットちゃんだ。おやすみソニア、おやすみソニア、ありがとう。ありがとう。シュッとする。配信をシュッとするぞ。あ、着陸してからにしよう。着陸してからにしよう。着陸しよう。着陸バフってしてからシュッとする。いいとこだから今。いいとこだから。着陸。真ん中でもよしかさん。おやすみソニア、ありがとう。おやすみソニア。来てくれて嬉しかったです。ありがとう。また一緒にロケット見ようね。さあ、また次の動画やロケット打ち上げやなんかいろいろでお会いしましょう。おやすみソニアン、明日も頑張ロケット。うすいクリアでした。